For the second time at Misano, the fall of Bagnaia brings up the rise of El Diablo. Welcome back to Motorsport 101. Hey gang, welcome to episode 330 of Motorsport 101, and this is the second part of our doubleheader of what was a pretty awesome stacked up weekend of motorsport. This time, we're going from 4 wheels to 2 wheels and heading back over the Atlantic to Misano for the second time this season for the MotoGP Grand Prix, Emilia Romagna, made in Italy, etc., etc. And yeah, it was a fun time. It was a tense time, and well, you can say it had definitely been coming, but we got the coronation of MotoGP's newest world champion, the first one ever to come from France. Fabulous Fabio, everybody. Fabio Cordaro, our new world champion. We'll talk all about his season and how he got Yamaha to break out the t-shirts probably a couple of weeks earlier than anticipated, than expected. I guess we'll talk about how we got to that point in a minute. But first of all, let's go around the horn. First up, Cam Buckley, how's it going, sir?
It's going real good. You know, I haven't known a feeling like this since Aragon 2017. Two Repsol Hondas on the podium in a 1-2.
The rapture has arrived.
We'd like to give our congratulations to noted perennial underdogs Repsol Honda on this historic
noted perennial. One bike is good and the other one is awful team. But this
minnows
time,
of the
both were good.
Minnows of the MotoGP paddock.
Oh,
victims. You know, hubris is a bitch. And when it comes around for you, no one's safe.
Oh dear. Yeah, we'll get into that as well. So somehow, out of all the episodes we've had of MotoGP dunking on the Repsol Honda brand, yes, they really did finish a Grand Prix 1 and 2. How we get to that point again is crazy, so stay tuned for more of that as Cam looks incredibly smug over his 1-2 finish. I don't know quite how we got there either, but here we are. RJ, how's it going, my man?
I was on fire last episode. I think I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to chill for a bit. I couldn't engage much with MotoGP. I did see the highlights. I'm just going to take this time to unwind, kick bats, and just enjoy.
A sound plan as we get into the highly tense MotoGP race and a topic that is bound to divide some people. King, how's it going down there, my man?
Going pretty good.
Oh, like, King, I love that we get to rehash old ground from about a month ago, talking about the one thing we thought was definitely not going to help the problem in lightweight bike racing actually becoming the thing they think is going to fix lightweight bike racing.
No, if certain people will be made to believe this in the end, they're gonna keep trying to push to make things safer. How? Don't know yet, but they're working on other options.
We'll figure that out later. Like,
yes, our favorite solution to be confirmed.
Yes, yeah, TBC. It's the versatile friend, TBC. So
my favorite Dale Coyne racing driver.
Of course, of course. Like we love TBC. We love how they always roll up to Dale Coyne sometime around February. Right. So, in the next hour or so, we will talk about MotoGP at Misano, the second coming of Misano, and how Fabio got his title crown, how Marc Marquez won a Grand Prix again, this time going clockwise rather than anti-clockwise, and how Ducati threw it all away again. And we will talk about the Thursday and a massive, and I do genuinely mean this, massive piece of news that came from the FIM regarding essentially the entire future of Grand Prix motorcycle racing changing massively regarding how old have you got to be to ride these bikes. And it's going to be a game changer, but also not really a game changer, if you get what I mean. We'll talk about that in the next about hour or so. But in the meantime, here's places you can find us if you haven't already. We're on youtube.com/motorsport101. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, get all those notifications about our content. We're on facebook.com/motorsport101. We're on Twitter at motorsport_101. If you want to follow our handles, there on the screen right now. If you're listening via audio, it's at Harrison101HD, at RJ O'Connell, at CBuckley917, and at Ryan Eric King. We're on Instagram at motorsport101pod. And if you really like us, you can back us financially on Patreon. Patreon.com/motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of our audio episodes. You can upgrade to 10 for all the video versions and get live commentary access on the Supporters Club of our Discord server live as we're being recorded. You can find all those details and all our written content, including an expansion on the second topic on the website, motorsport101.com. Check out the blog section if you haven't already. So, without further ado, let's get into the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
MotoGP was back for its second race at Misano this season, first of 2 repeat rounds to close out the 2021 season. And after changeable conditions on Saturday, Ducati's own Francesco Bagnaia gave himself a good chance to keep his slim title hopes alive with another pole position. With Fabio Cordaro failing to make Q2 for the first time in his top-flight career, he would go on to start the race in 15th. It was dry on Sunday, and it was pretty clear It was dry on Sunday, and it was pretty clear early on who the 2 main contenders were, because after Jack Miller crashed early on at turn 15, Bagnaia and Marc Marquez pulled away from the field. As the laps ticked down, it looked like Bagnaia was going to break away, but then with 5 laps left, Bagnaia crashed from the lead at turn 15, effectively guaranteeing Fabio Quartararo would win his first Premier Class World title. Marc Marquez took his 3rd win in 2021 with teammate Paul Espargaro a career-high 2nd, and Enea Bastianini shocking Quartararo on the final lap to take his first podium in the top flight. But Fabio Quartararo came over the line for it to become the 2021 MotoGP World Champion, the first ever French World Champion in his 3rd season in the top flight.
At age 22.
At age 22. Marc Marquez really broke the curve on what we expect from first-year drivers.
Murdered it.
But enough about that. Folks, your thoughts on Fabio Quartararo's championship season, and also, when you have a minute, those celebrations. Because I saw the augmented reality in the highlights. It's something.
It's a trip. A solid 8 out of 10 for me for the celebrations. I loved I love that the gold helmet has become like the Grand Prix motorcycle racing tradition. I know King's joked about this, how in cycling, this is really not the best of ideas.
Yeah, because Sasha brought it up during the race, because in professional cycling, obviously, separate equipment is a big marker of big accomplishments. Obviously, everyone knows that the leader of the Tour de France wears a yellow jersey. A lot of people don't know that after the Olympic Games, for the 4 years up until the next Olympic Games, the Olympic champion in the road race wears a golden helmet.
I know, the riders don't actually wear them very often. I think Marquez did a couple of times in some of his older titles, but it's almost purely for decoration. It's
Mark did for his last one. Mark did for 2019.
He did, yeah.
The last race of the year.
He doesn't do... that's not normal. Normally it's just purely for decoration. I know that Fabio broke his out of, one of those dry ice cabinets. The gold version of the El Diablo
the Zelda
Devil
item
helmet
theme.
Oh, yeah, we do. It fits perfectly. It really does. And, I love they gave him instructions, walk here, and then they had to give him the spot, say, look, stand here, and then, there was this great moment where Dorna panned out, and you could see the whole grandstand, and then they played his career highlights on the LED boards underneath, and then it's a world champion. Okay, that was really cool. I have to say, Dorna is very, very good at playing up the big moments. Wasn't such a big fan of the giant augmented reality dancing devil, but hey, they can't all be winners.
Didn't have pants on.
No, this is so uncouth. Talking about the man himself, this is a huge, huge deal for Grand Prix motorcycle racing, especially back in France. The French love their bikes. I don't think it's been spoken about enough that France are really, really into bike racing. they regularly get over 100,000 on race days at Le Mans whenever MotoGP rolls into town. I remember them going nuts over. Yeah, you got Cam.
Yeah, most of the endurance races, we talk about the other World Endurance Championship, are located in France, not only for the other 24 Hours of Le Mans, but also the Bol d'Or, which is a tremendous event in the history of motorcycle racing. They love their bikes.
Mm-hmm. They do indeed. And you've made it when President Macron is congratulating you on social media. PSG Football Club is congratulating you on social media. Like Jean Todt, the president of the FIA, was leading the congratulations on Twitter as well. This was a huge deal back in France, and the man has been tremendous all season long, and all the question marks we ever had about Fabio Quartararo going into this season, because we all saw how his 2020 season, the pandemic season as I like to nickname it, and how it all came tumbling down like a house of cards last year. He was incredibly open about hiring a sports psychologist and, getting some mental health help for the future. And look at the rider he's become since. Cam, I know you could speak for this one. Incredibly impressive. Hasn't really put a foot wrong all year.
No, he was very reflective last year, because I think we can all agree that last year had Fabio written all over it, and he dropped the ball. Both he and Yamaha with some casual cheating early on in the year. He got himself right. Knuckled down on the places where he's strong. His braking ability is some of the best I've ever seen on a motorcycle. And that's really emerged this year more than any other. And certainly wasn't a perfect season. I wouldn't call it an all-timer, but he kept his nose clean. He scored the best results when they were available to him. And he didn't really have a lot of bad days. And that makes you champion when no one else can keep their heads. Keep your own, and you might end up the winner. And man, all of his competition this year just could not stop tripping over themselves.
It was a bit like last year with Mir, only not to the same extreme. Mir was the most consistent in a group of inconsistency. And I think Quartararo's season was somewhat like that, which again is a testament to his newfound mental strength.
Yeah, just bulletproof consistency. Even when he didn't have the ability to win on a given day, he would bring home the points.
Yeah, the fact he celebrated Le Mans where he finished third like it was a Grand Prix win because it was wet conditions, and he knew he struggled in the rain, and he knew what a big result that was for his title campaign. He was patching the holes in his game. And was one interview that got me about this. It was Andrea Dovizioso who was talking to the race about this, and obviously he's just joined the Yamaha team again after, the best part of a year on hiatus. He was shown Fabio Quartararo's data on the bike and how it matches up, and he just said, how is he doing this? Because he's the first person to openly admit he knows the Yamaha shortcomings better than anybody else. Its struggles to overtake, its lack of top-end grunt, its front tyres overheating. And he always finds a way to mitigate it all. And that is what's made him so strong this year. Because you look at Yamaha around him this year.
They have nothing.
They've had no prolific second rider all year long. Frankie Morbidelli
I will
was
say,
Frankie,
this race early on, not too bad. Given that he's still very much recovering from what is probably pretty permanent knee injuries. But yeah, they've had nothing outside of Quartararo this year. Rossi, we know it's time, and he knows it. He's admitted it, and he's leaving at the end of this year. Last time in Italy, by the way,
finishing 10th, by the way, felt like, oh man, Ben Roethlisberger just threw for 200 yards and didn't throw an interception at this stage of his NFL career. It's like, oh my God, Peyton Manning threw for 250 when he was with the Broncos after his shoulder gave out.
a Marquez win and an Espargaro brothers second in Rossi's final race in Italy. Somewhere, friend of the show, Kevin Walsh was punching air.
Oh yeah. But you know what? Some lucky fan actually
Yeah.
got Valentino Rossi's special Misano
Priceless.
helmet. And dude, for the record, he never gives those away. Ever. I've been watching him for 25 years. I've never seen him throw a helmet into the crowd before. Ever. He just doesn't do that. That helmet is going to be on eBay next week with a £25,000 price tag. It's going to be on eBay tomorrow with a 25 grand price tag. Guaranteed.
25?
That is going to... Minimum. That's the reserve price. No, that is getting sold for a hot minute. But no, I mean...
But yeah, to bring it back to Fabio for a minute, it's just, again, he's gained the ability this year through a big increase in his mental toughness to just know when not to overextend himself. But also, when there is an opportunity in front of him, leverage the bike's strengths to his advantage to go get that result.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
He
was very, very good this year.
Yeah, just patched pretty much every major hole in him and Yamaha's game, and he was able to find a way to make it work when no other Yamaha rider was prepared to or willing to. Or, again, to be fair to Morbidelli, he's been hurt pretty much all the year. But
I'd say their only other rider that they've really had, because I don't think we can call Maverick Vinales much of a Yamaha rider this year. Remember when he won a race this year?
Well, yeah, remember that? That was fun.
Yeah, the only other full-time rider that they've had is Valentino, who, again, is just too old at this point.
Indeed.
You say these too old, and the VR46 Ultras are... I hear the sirens, they're coming.
We can throw some helmets at them with a little more force.
Yeah, sure, why not? No, like I said, a tremendous overall season. And again, MotoGP's got another disgustingly likable French, Gen Z star. Man is celebrating his world title by doing the floss with an augmented reality devil in the background. And that's how you know I'm starting to get old when it comes to motorsport. And I'm only 29. And I'm seeing a 22-year-old world champion. Which, again, if it wasn't for guys like Marc Marquez and Casey Stoner, we'd be pulling our hair out about how ludicrous this is. Again, because MotoGP...
They took that curve and melted it down.
Yeah, it's a puddle at this point. It doesn't exist. But, we got there. I said Yamaha was probably able to rip open the t-shirts a couple of weeks early. Portimao in 2 weeks' time was the far more likely event that Fabio was going to win this title. Bagnaia led lights to crash on this occasion from pole position. It was looking like it was going to be a Grand Slam victory for Bagnaia until 5 laps to go, and
wow.
If there was one way maybe of summing up Bagnaia's season, and it's maybe even his time in MotoGP today, Cam, was probably that one.
I love watching Pecco versus Marquez. I love it. We've seen it, I think, 3 times now. I love it. But there is a problem when you are pushing 110%. The guy behind you is also pushing that hard. And as we saw at the start of this weekend, he's coming back. Because in qualifying, Marc Marquez ended up over the front of his bike on his handlebars and saved the bike.
He's back, folks.
It's the slow burn of the transformation before everyone realizes they're screwed. These two chased each other away at the front after Jack Miller went down, which is pretty much the story of Jack Miller's entire season, and proceeded to pull at minimum about 4 to 5 tenths on the field every single lap for the remainder of the race.
Pretty much.
They were both over the limit, trading fastest laps, both of them refusing to give an inch. And Bagnaia just dropped the front of the bike. He was in win or crash mode. He admitted it himself because there was no other option. He had to win this race. And he just straddled a little too far over that line.
yeah, he openly admitted he was over the limit on that race, and it sums up their situation better than anything else. We know that Pecco has a genuine X factor on that Duke, in the that he can mitigate.
Make it turn.
He can make it turn. He can mitigate Ducati's biggest weakness, and that is why, if this was like a game of Madden, he'd be one of those guys with the X Factor stamp on his profile, because he's that good. I said, and if anybody followed my tweets on Sunday afternoon, I gave him the ultimate commentator's curse, because I thought he's starting to pull away from Marquez with 5 to go, and I'm thinking, this is the fastest bike rider on the planet right now. Like Fabio's not had these barnstorming wins over the course of the season. Bagnaia was the guy that was going 110% trying to keep his slim title chances alive.
You know what we talked about Colton Herta a couple weeks ago on the IndyCar review? We talked about XP.
Thank you,
the
Benson,
Knoxville
from the
episode.
single-seater. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. With expected points, man, the amount of laps led and the poles out of the Ducati contingent this year. And they got a whole lot of nothing out of it, because when you overstep the mark on the Ducati, there's no flair to it. There's no massive crash. It just drops the front and you crash out of the race.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
You just low-side
it. Went. Yeah, it just went. Front tyre gave way. I mean, Misano is already one of the most technically difficult tracks MotoGP goes to. And turn 15 is infamous. It wiped out Miller earlier in the race. It wiped out Marco Bezzecchi in the Moto2 race earlier in the afternoon. You're doing 5 straight right-handers on that part of the track, coming down towards
that side of the tires just punished through that section of the track.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you've got a very fast left coming up, and if you disrespect the front, going into that left-hander, you will go down. There is no other way of describing it, and that's exactly what happened to both factory Ducatis on the day. Thank goodness Enea Bastianini spared their blushes. Yeah, Enea spared their blushes in the manufacturer's title because he was still able to finish in third. But it was not a good result for Bagnaia at all.
I was in it as well with Mark had to put a soft rear tire on the bike to try and mitigate some of the Honda's rear grip problems, because that is the only way is to bandage it over with a soft rear tire. That rear tire was going. He was beginning to drop off, but even then, suffering the tire drop off, he was only about 9/10 behind.
Yeah.
These are 2 of the fastest people on a motorcycle on planet Earth on the day, leaving over the limit. Both bikes visibly out of control for 30 laps.
And yeah, I think Marquez was just about beaten. I was sitting there thinking, does Bagnaia need to push this hard? He survived a onslaught of Fabio Quartararo the last time we raced at Misano, and that was only 6 weeks ago. And he felt like he had to break away from Marquez to win, and he just overcooked it and went. And it's the second time in 2 years he's done this, because he did this at this very Grand Prix last year when it was Maverick Vinales chasing him down when he was a factory Yamaha rider, and he did the exact same thing, only it was turn 6 rather than turn 15.
That supreme X factor that makes him so fast on the Ducati means that the Ducati's always straddling that line of the fastest bike on the grid and sitting in a gravel trap.
It reminds me a lot of the more aggressive Hondas, just on the knife edge constantly, and it's never ideal. But let's talk a little bit about the man at the front as well, because almost lost in the shuffle of the title drama and how he got there. Marc Marquez won his 86th career Grand Prix.
He's all right. At a clockwise track.
This is a problem. This is a problem. I mean, he has 4 less Grand Prix wins now than Angel Nieto. And he's third on the all-time wins list. It's only Nieto, Agostini, and Rossi at this point.
Realistically. How many races did he miss this year, Dre?
4.
4. How many of the races that he has been part of has he been fully physically fit?
0.
He has 3 wins. He is by a country mile top Honda in the standings, and he could realistically finish 5th if he continues this run of form.
He's coming for King's Man's Brad
What the
hell? Yet again, Marc Marquez finds new ways to not make any sense.
He's having the worst year of his career as far as actually being here. And he's still showing everyone why he is just busted.
Yeah. He's a cheat code. And look, his teammate is no scrub. His teammate is Paul Espargaro, former top independent. He was the savior of KTM no less than a couple of years ago. Took a bad, struggling factory team, sorry, King, to really good positions on numerous occasions, challenging for wins on occasions. Well, even got on pole one time. He's no slouch. He's a world-class bike rider. The best bike.
He was left
bad
gasping.
bike rider for me in the world.
He was left gasping in the wake of the front two, as was everyone else.
He was 8 seconds behind at his worst, which in MotoGP terms is a chasm. Unbelievable result for him. And I just wanted to say, gentlemen, how spicy does 2022 look when you've got the essentially 3 biking final bosses spearheading the sport going into next year? We got Fabio on a Yamaha, Bagnaia on a Ducati, and Marquez on a Honda. 3 different manufacturers, 3 different strengths, 3 very different bike riders. And those are the 3 favorites going into 2022?
Man, I feel for Johan Mir and Suzuki. I don't know how it all went wrong.
The best strategy to develop your bike is to not develop the bike at all and hope that it being easy to ride is enough. No, get your Suzuki. If you want to play at this level, you got to break out the checkbook. You got to start throwing things at that bike because they were nowhere this way. Even Rins had a pretty good weekend considering his year so far, and they were nowhere.
Yeah, and then Mir crashed it. Mir had arguably the worst Grand Prix of 2021. He was already started, I think, in 13th place. He fell to 15th off the start. It turns out he jumped the start and had to take a double long lap penalty as a result of jumping the start. And then as he was about to take his long lap penalty, he crashes and takes out Danilo Petrucci with him on Danilo's 31st birthday. Way to go, man.
Snowballing.
It's like a cartoon anvil from Looney Tunes, only they just keep falling on his head.
Yeah.
It was
not good.
On a weekend where the could have and should have world champion of last year was rightfully took the crown this year. Last year's champion, yikes.
Yeah.
That was all-time bad.
Yeah, there's already rumblings that they want to try and bring Davide Brivio back, given he's now over there at Alpine.
Good luck!
I don't think that's going to do anything. I really don't.
I think secretly they think that a lot of their success last year was down to Davide and his man management, and I'm just like, if that was the reason you won that title last year, you guys are in bigger trouble than I thought.
Yeah.
Because, I knew it wasn't a good sign when as soon as I said that rumor, King just started giggling in the background because he was just like, what is that? Yeah.
I'll say for 2022, Ducati, make the bike turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yamaha, make the bike go. Mm-hmm. Honda, just make a bike. Make something that can be called a motorcycle. And we are in for a real good season.
Yeah. I said it at Aragon, I said it again here, those 3 are the 3 fastest dudes in bike racing right here and now. It's Fabio, Bagnaia, and Marquez. And it frustrates me because I would have thrown Maverick Vinales into that discussion if he hadn't over-revved the Yamaha into oblivion. But here we are.
Hey, you got a top 10 on a Aprilia this week. It's
good drive.
It ain't much, but it's honest work.
Good ride, Maverick, and especially given tough emotional circumstances as well. Good to see them back, and good job from Maverick to get in the top 10, second ever race on an Aprilia. That's no slouch performance at all. But my God, 2022 is looking tasty. It is looking tremendous.
Spicy season.
Oh,
it's
spicy indeed.
There's never been a better time to get into MotoGP, except for all the other times we told you that there was never been a better time to get into MotoGP.
Indeed. America, I'm looking at you. I saw those TV ratings over the weekend. 500,000, step on it. Yeah, America, get behind this now.
It'd help if all the events were live.
It really would. It really would. America, get on this, okay? Seriously, it's nice morning. Get a bit of excitement with your breakfast.
Nice morning.
Yeah, I know.
God's sake.
It's super European, especially in pandemics where the flyaways have been cut out altogether with MotoGP for the last year and a half. It's not exactly helped either. But, go out of your way to watch this one. This one was fun. This one was very fun at the front. It was tense. It had a fair amount of shock in it. There was some good fun in the midfield as well. And, the surge in an air at the end on the final lap is well worth a watch because both those two almost wrecked trying to fight for that third place on the final lap. It was great fun. Now, the biggest piece of news that came out of this weekend, besides Fabio's world title, of course, came out on Thursday, believe it or not. And it was a massive announcement regarding the future of Grand Prix motorcycle racing, especially when it comes to how its junior classes are being run. So here's a little bit more on that right after this. So, on the Thursday of Misano's weekend, the FIM released a press release statement that announced a collaboration between themselves and Dorna that will significantly change the minimum age limit of the junior series it manages. It's going to be a slow process over the next couple of years, but by 2023, the minimum age of all MotoGP World Championships, that's the Premier Class, Moto2 and Moto3, will be increased to 18. You have to be age 18 to race in any MotoGP World Championship. It also means increases to the Junior World Championship and the Spanish CEV. That's gone up to 16 years of age, and the minimum age from Red Bull rookies has been increased from 13 to 15. Now, there is a grandfather clause there's an exemption, so anyone that's already in these classes obviously will get to race next year and obviously in 2023, regardless of the regulation changes, as long as you meet the future criteria, as well as a 1-year age exemption if you are a champion of the previous class. So, for example, if you're 17 and you win the Junior Championship, you are allowed to take part in the Moto3 World Championship, just to make that a little bit clearer. FIM also announced in this statement as well that there are going to be some safety changes. Airbags will be mandatory in all the major series down to Talent Cup level from 2022 onwards. Brackets, thank God, close brackets, and more work will be done towards increasing the speed of communication regarding crashes, like the use of the bike's dashboards, for example, which we already see for strategic reasons across the classes. Apparently they're working on trying to communicate more to the riders about incidents. The riders were asked about this. One of the big ones for me came from Valentino Rossi. He came out and said, and I quote, especially for Moto3, from 16 to 18 is a big change because everybody wants to start as soon as possible. Rossi said when asked by Autosport for Sports and the Radio that it's a big difference because 2 years is a lot. At 18, a lot of riders have to wait. For sure, this will be better for the safety, but I don't know if it will fix all the problems. I think it's more important that the riders will have good behaviour when they are on track than the age. So they need to follow more precisely the race direction and stewards are more strict. A move to 18 is quite a big step. Imagine I started at 17 in the World Championship 25 or 26 years ago. So 18 is quite high. So, again, as I talked to King at the top of the show, we said that the one thing that we thought was probably not going to fix the problem is the first thing that Dorna implements, an age limit increase. So, I think you might be able to see where this is going, but, gentlemen, how effective do we think these changes will be regarding the state of lightweight bike racing?
it's not going to change anything in terms of the on-track racing. Like, the racing is going to be exactly the same.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm joking again.
Look, airbags being mandatory is objectively great.
Yep, it should have been a thing already.
Very good.
Yeah, I read that statement and I was
yes.
I read that statement and I was like, you mean it's not a thing already? Like, flip the bill, get everybody a goddamn airbag in their levers. I don't know how that wasn't a thing already, but yes, good. Better late than never.
Communication via the dashboards, again, don't know how it wasn't a thing already. Objectively good. Notifying people of incidents further up the track. But, to King's point, in Moto3 and lightweight bike racing, it's not going to be a corner or a sector ahead. It's going to be right next to you because we pack race. All that's been done here, as far as the changing of the age limits, is all you've changed are the dates and years on the headstone of a dead rider. That's all you've done here.
I can't disagree with any of this. I felt like you were just kicking the can down the road, as far as I'm concerned. And one of the first thing that came into my mind when I read this statement on Thursday was, you can still ride in a Talent Cup series at 14 on a Moto3 bike. You can still take part in the Asia Talent Cup, the British Talent Cup, the new Northern Talent Cup coming out later this year. You could still ride a Moto3 bike at age 14 in those series. So what difference does it make?
And
the
idea where we've seen from a lot of people, looking at you, Simon Patterson, is the idea, that if a rider is older, they're somewhat more mature, more experienced, and they're not more likely to put themselves in dangerous situations. We've seen from all the writing this year that is factually incorrect, based on the ages of the riders involved in notable incidents. Give me 1 second, RJ. And also, like Dre, you said, you could still be 14 and ride in the Talent Cup. Say you win the Talent Cup, you go to CEV, you win CEV, and then you're in Moto3 the next year. You have 2 seasons of experience on that bike already before you hit the Moto3 World Championship. I don't think experience is an issue here.
Yeah, because how old was Romano Fenati when he grabbed dude's brake lever?
Mid-20s.
How old is Darren Bender now when we're all in agreement that, like, yeah, he's jumping up a step way too far and he's far too wild for this step up from Moto3 to Moto1?
I want to say 20. I want to say 21, and like the last person to do the double jump was Jack Miller, and Jack Miller was runner-up in a world championship. At least there was some justification for Miller because the talent stood out in Moto3 back then. He was narrowly.
What in the world do they have planned to bust up the packs?
Yeah, because that's the thing. We need to step away from these intangible things we can't measure and just assume are the trend that if you're older, you're going to make smarter decisions out on track. We have to talk about concrete solutions to solve these actual problems where people's lives are on the line.
King, I want to address that directly. In this instance, it does not matter what decision you make on track. Because no matter what happens in pack racing, and this is in IndyCar racing, this is in NASCAR, and this is here, where people are exposed, where people do not have 3,400 pounds of rolling steel to protect them when someone crashes in a pack. Your mistake might not matter. You might not make one. If someone else makes a mistake in a pack, there is nothing you can do. You are at the mercy of everyone else around you.
Yeah,
you can't get out of trouble in a pack race if someone goes down. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
The only place to go is into another rider, and we know how that story ends.
Yeah, I was going to say, the dashboard messaging is a non-factor, because the type of incidents that are killing these young men and these children, they're instantaneous. Like, Having a dashboard saying, oh, there's a crash 3 corners down the road. No, you have a leading group of 15 to 20 people most of the time.
Yeah.
And
it comes up, it creates this notion that, oh, the reason why we don't see these fatal accidents happen all the time in MotoGP is because they're just older and more experienced. We all know that's not true.
Look,
10 years ago, 10 years ago this month, we saw an incident not dissimilar in the way it ended. Because coming up out of a corner, there was a crash, and people didn't see it in time, and we lost Marco out of it.
Marco Simoncelli. Yeah.
10 years ago this month, we had a pack race that never should have happened in IndyCar, where people knew what was going to happen. The crash happened well up the field, and because you're going so fast and you're so close together, there was nothing that could have been done.
No.
We lost Dan Weldon.
One of the darkest weeks in modern motorsport history. Because that was the same week. Look, I know King mentioned Simon Patterson by name because he got into it with me on Sunday morning regarding this, and I didn't like the analogy that the man made, comparing 15-year-olds to the typical 15-year-old. These are not normal 15-year-olds. These are children that have been coerced into riding potential death traps from the time they're barely out of nappies. This is not the average 15-year-old at all. Like, these are... Like, I used the example about how life is in the UK. At 15, you cannot consent to sex. You can't legally drink. You can't legally drive. You can't join the military. You can't get married. You need to have a legal guardian to do anything in life worth a damn. But you can potentially compromise your education, fly all over the world and ride a 150 mile an hour motorcycle. You cannot sit there and compare that to the average 15-year-old that's watching Team America Secret Police on their DVD player and swinging the occasional can of beer.
Like,
it is not the fucking same. Not even close.
For all intents and purposes, for a lot of these teenagers, this is more than just future profession, or even a profession at that. It is their lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
These are professional athletes. And this whole notion, and the reason why I was so angry at Simon, a man who's been in the paddock for a long time and knows these people better than I do, and I'll be the first person to hold my hands up on that. I am not a professional MotoGP journalist. I've never been in a MotoGP paddock. I don't know these people. But what I do know, when I watch these broadcasts and watch these products and see these people ride these motorcycles, is the age of these people has got not one fucking iota to do with how they behave on a racetrack. And I'll give you 2 easy examples. During COTA, that incident that had Pedro Acosta launched into like 30, 40 feet down the track, the cut that Dennis Onsu put on Jeremy Alcoba himself had an even more egregious weave at 145 miles an hour down that COTA straight, and nothing happened. The same Jeremy Alcoba, in a segment that sadly didn't make Motorsport 101 back in June when we reviewed Catalunya, it was optional. It didn't make the final cut, but I wanted to talk about it because Jeremy Alcoba intentionally slowed down on the second to last lap of a massive pack race in Catalunya. One of the most inherently dangerous things you can do on a racetrack, because he didn't want to be towed down the front straight on the final lap of a Grand Prix. And if you've seen that final lap of Catalunya, they were going 9 or 10 wide into turn 1 on the final lap of that race. And you know what's funny? Jeremy Alcoba is 20 years old next month. Please do not sit there and tell me that the 18-year-old rider is automatically more mature than the 16-year-old rider. Especially in a sport that is right now championing Pedro Acosta, a 16-year-old rookie at this level, who could potentially win a world championship next weekend in Portimao. If he wins at Portimao next weekend over Dennis Foggia, he is a 16-year-old rookie world champion. But has anybody sat here and said, Pedro's got to sit out another 2 years? He's not ready yet. He's not mature enough to win this.
Fundamentally, racecraft and maturity past a certain point has nothing to do with age. It has to do with racecraft and maturity.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, like, this is a sport that has actively championed bending its own rules to get people through the classes as quickly as possible. Our newest MotoGP world champion was allowed to race in Moto3's world championship at age 15 because they didn't want to give him a disadvantage by missing the first 2 rounds before his 16th birthday. A guy that MotoGP's own site had an own article in January saying, it's Fabio Quartararo. Yes, Fabio Quartararo, the guy that just won the MotoGP World Championship at age 22, the 3rd youngest champion of all time. Is he the French Marc Marquez? This was him at 15 when he dominated the junior CEV title. Nobody was out here like saying, oh my god, Fabio's not old enough. No, you literally bent the rules to let him... You literally bent the rules to let him compete. Marc Marquez would not have been allowed to race for Repsol Honda in his first season in the top flight if it wasn't for the fact they bent the rules saying that rookies couldn't ride factory bikes. 8 months later, he's the youngest ever world champion at age 20. It's complete hypocrisy to now suddenly say children can't race in this world championship.
It's taking the easy way out, and it's avoiding the real problem. And the real problem is that these lightweight bikes race far too closely to one another for far too much of a lap.
Yeah. And from an outsider's perspective, it is, if you're just some random person who's never really watched motorcycle racing and you're hearing about this age limit, it's not a big deal. And for the most part, I'm fine with the age limit being implemented. But again, this can't be the only solution because this is not the problem.
It's not the solution.
Like, it's solving something that isn't the problem.
No. Yeah. It's putting a band-aid on an axe wound. That's what this is. It's not going to fix a goddamn thing. That's what frustrates me about this. You need to be taking a hard look at you're going to be taking a hard look at the bikes themselves and what you can do to spread them out, whether that be an increase of power, whether that be the Jürgen van den Gerberg solution he mentioned for Matt Oxley earlier, where he said maybe tighten the final drive of these gearboxes to stop people slipstreaming so hard. That's a potential solution. Certainly better than the nuclear option of just opening up development, which is going to cost hundreds of thousands of euros.
Which will kill an entry-level class.
Right.
And unfortunately, like, while I like some aspects of Oxley's solution, the other problem is that you'd have all the bikes topping out on top speed at the same time. So if bikes are close together, they're all going to arrive at the corner at the same time, which is just creating a different version of the problem we have. We see it in NASCAR at the super speedways at Daytona and Talladega. If one person has a problem, it's everyone's problem, and we junk a few $1 million worth of race car. The difference is here, in NASCAR, you've got 3,400 pounds of rolling steel protecting you. Here, you've got a layer of leather, and now you've got airbags. And that is not enough. We do not have the technology to mitigate a human being being hit by a motorcycle. Yeah. That is the long and the short of it.
Yeah, and changing the age limits and making teenagers hang around in these junior classes for longer is not going to solve that problem.
So there's no.
It's going to placate. It's going to placate the guilt of people who don't even engage with bike racing to begin with. You know what I mean?
Right. It's going to prevent those god awful clickbait titles of 15-year-old dies on a motorcycle. Fucking newspapers publish for shock clicks. That's the only thing it's going to stop. But you know what? It's not going to stop. Talented young men and women dying on motorcycles because the racing is too close.
Yeah, and
we treat it like kids in cages.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this story that makes me so angry is that it's not that they've put an age limit in; It's that it almost feels like damage control from the sport to kick the problem down to the junior categories, which we know nowhere near the same amount of people watch. Because, hey, this won't happen in the junior CEV because they're all going to be 16 or over. It's not going to happen in the Moto 3 World title because they're the mature ones. Because they can now say that children will no longer contest the World Championship. And that will make them feel better about what they're getting themselves into. So we'll kick it down to the junior level and let it be their problem. That's sickening. That's morbid to even think about. It's like, maybe if we put this in the junior categories and make it go away, that'll solve the problem. It will not solve any problem. You're just moving the problem somewhere else. And these changes are a start, but you've got to have many, many more difficult conversations with Honda, with KTM, about how these bikes are being made, and you need to have hardcore conversations about what can be done with these bikes to differentiate them, because right now they are too close, it is too competitive, and this, like I said, this age limit change, it's a band-aid on a head wound. It's not going to solve anything. It's just going to make us feel better about our inherently dangerous sport, and that is not going to solve anything. If anything, it's just going to make the situation worse, because it looks like it's damage control from a PR standpoint, and that angers me, because we've already had half a dozen kids die in the last 3 years in these sorts of scenarios, and it's not going to stop anytime soon as long as these bikes are the way that they are. And more needs to be done, and sitting there and saying, oh, well, just make the riders more mature. They're human. They have flaws. They're not going to be able to ride.
Maturity doesn't, it's not linear.
No. You're asking the children to solve the problem, and that shouldn't be how anything works in life as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, personally, I hope more can be done, but it infuriates me that this is. I hope this is not the end of the conversation. I hope there is more coming, and I sincerely hope that journalists that know better don't want to look at the age limit of riders in X's and O's and be so binary to rate their maturity based on how old they are, while at the same time celebrating potentially a 16-year-old rookie world champion. Funny how that turns out. That'll do it on this week's episode of Motorsport 101. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. You know where you can find us, youtube.com/motorsport101, facebook.com/motorsport101, Twitter at motorsport_101. Person handles are on the screen at Harrison101HD, at RJ O'Connell, at Ryan Eric King, at cbuckley917. And again, Instagram, Motorsport101pod, website, motorsport101.com, Patreon, Motorsport101. You can find us on there if you want to back us financially, if you can. Until next time, I've been Dre Harrison, they've been RJ O'Connell, Cam Buckley, and Ryan Eric King. At least Fabio Quartararo is alright, isn't he? He's alright. He's a cool kid. Until then, sayonara.
Later, y'all.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.